Hi, it's Sarah from Floral, and today I'm going to walk you guys through how to make a beautiful centerpiece like this. Perfect for those folks who want to DIY their own wedding flowers. So first of all, let's chat about what supplies we need. I've got floral foam, I've got a vessel, I've got a Lazy Susan here. These are optional, but I find it really helpful. And then I've got pruners, which are essential. I've got waterproof tape, and then I've got a knife and a cutting board for cutting my floral foam. So to start with, let's prep our floral foam. So I don't need a very big piece of foam, especially since my vessel is quite small. So I'm just going to cut a piece here. I've got a bucket of water right here, and I'm going to take the floral foam and just place it in the bucket of water. It's important that you don't push the floral foam in. It needs to be able to soak up the water on its own time period. It doesn't take very long, and that way all the pores are fully saturated with water. So I'm just going to give it a sec here to soak up the water. So now that I've got my foam all soaked, I'm going to put it into my vessel. Putting my vessel on my Lazy Susan, and I'm going to use my waterproof tape to hold the floral foam in place. That's helpful so that everything is secure, because the last thing you want is for something to tip over and for you to lose your arrangement. So I'm just going to do an X here. You can also use chicken wire if you don't like using floral foam, but the thing about floral foam is the thing about chicken wire is that it's not quite as easy to work with as floral foam. So now I've got my vessel with my floral foam in it, and it's firmly secured with my waterproof tape. So when you're making any arrangement, the first thing to start with is your greenery. So I've got a couple different types of greenery here. I've got this eucalyptus, I've got some sweet anise, and I've got some dusty miller. And I'm going to take my pruners and cut the greenery into more manageable shapes. So this is a huge piece of dusty miller. So I'm going to cut it much smaller and just push it into the foam. You want to make sure that your greenery and your flowers as well are firmly in the foam, or else they won't be able to hydrate well enough. I've got some really fun smoke bush here that I'm going to use in my arrangement, but this is much too big of a piece. So I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces here. And this one here, you can see it has a bit of a blunt end now that I've cut off the top of it. So when I'm adding in my flowers, I'm just going to want to make sure that I put a flower alongside it so that it covers this blunt end. If I don't want this many stems on it, I can also just pull those off to get a smaller piece of greenery. So I'm going to put my greenery throughout my arrangement. I can take my Lazy Susan and kind of spin it so I can get an idea from all sides. With all my greenery, I'm going to need to make sure there's no leaves actually going into the foam, so I'm just pulling off the last little bit of leaves before shoving in the greenery. And we'll just keep doing this as we fill in our floral foam with all our greenery. So we don't want to fill in our arrangement with too much greenery because we obviously need to keep space for our flowers. So after I've got a decent base of greenery here, I'm going to start with flowers, and I'm going to start with the biggest ones first. This one here is a dahlia, and dahlias often have these little buds that are kind of springing off the side. So you can just cut those off and actually use them to give a little bit of texture throughout the arrangement if you don't want them to be included with your big guy. So there's a couple things to keep in mind when choosing where to place your flowers. So you don't want to have the flowers at the exact same height. Otherwise it looks kind of like you've got eyeballs staring out at you. So I wouldn't put this one here and then put this one directly beside it the same height. I want this one to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, sort of in a different plane, so that way I have that visual differentiation between the couple different blooms. Also consider whether you want this to be front facing or not. So if I'm putting this against a back of a wall, I might not need to actually put flowers in the back of the arrangement, but if it's going to be on a table centerpiece, then I do need to have the entirety of the arrangement filled with flowers. So I'm just going to work my way around here, adding in these flowers in a bunch of different heights and starting with my biggest blooms. So I'm just going to keep doing that for a bit here. Now I've got a pretty good sense of the bigger blooms. I'm going to start filling this in with some of my smaller guys. Like I've got Status here. I've also got some fun Cosmos and a few Scabiosas. So I'm going to start using these to add the different height texture. And so I'm going to add those in. Okay, now that I've got all my flowers in place, I'm gonna do a spin with my bouquet and just make sure that I can't see any of the floral foam. So I can see foam in a couple different spots. So that's where I'm gonna go back in with my greenery and I'm gonna fill in any spots where you can see the floral foam or any sort of gaps that exist where some flowers are needed to be put in place. So once I'm done filling in all my spots, that's all you have to do. I'm going to be adding water to this arrangement because even though it has floral foam, that tends to get depleted. So I just pour in a little bit of water into the bezel every once in a while, every couple days, to make sure that it stays hydrated. With adding the water in it, and using high quality bulk floral blooms from Floral, this arrangement should easily last 1 to 2 weeks. And you'll be able to have it for your wedding and then give it to some of your guests to take home. So hopefully you guys learned something about making a centerpiece. Let me know if you have questions and thanks for watching.